Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, and welcome back to all those returning subscribers. Today, we have a really interesting what if. As we know from the Android saga, Goku and crew had the option to take out the androids before they even became a threat, but decided not to and trained instead. A lot of people have wondered what would happen if they took the opportunity and killed the androids right away. However, I'm going to do something like that, but a little different. See, you may see the title and think, the androids are already good though, aren't they? Well, yeah, they are. But originally, they weren't. They started out as enemies just like anyone else. And in this video, I want to take a look at what would happen if these androids were turned good instead of just being evil from the start. And by androids, this will include Cell as well. So let's get into it. Forgive me for making this a little headcanon-y, but I do have to take liberties here like I do in some other what-ifs. Besides, all what-ifs are basically headcanon already, aren't they? From the main timeline, we saw that Android 16 basically underwent the same conditions. All of the Kill Goku objectives were erased from his mind, and because of Bulma's programming, 16 wasn't really a threat like before. Now, what if that happened to all of the androids? The whole plot of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z remains the same up until when Trunks arrives and informs everyone of the androids. Rather than waiting to fight them, it's decided to try to track them down early. The hunt begins with some brainstorming done. Trunks describes both androids as wearing some red symbol on them with 2 R's on it, and Goku knows that this is the Red Ribbon Army. This is a little confusing because Goku thought he destroyed them all, so maybe one of them ended up making it out. After giving all the info he can, Trunks returns to his timeline and with help from Bulma, research begins on every possible Red Ribbon Army suspect. Trunks is going to return because he wants to make sure this all goes right. The search lands on someone named Dr. Gero, and they find the general location of his lab. Everyone splits up around this area and tries to search for it. After some time passes during the search, one search group consisting of Krillin and Piccolo arrive at the lab, but it seems kind of dark and empty. In the back of one of the rooms, Krillin spots an old man huddled over a table with sparks flying and mechanical parts whirring. Dr. Gero is in the process of building some sort of device. Piccolo wastes no time. He shouts out to the man and asks if he's Gero. Gero confirms this, and feeling threatened, he runs towards the 3 pods on the other side of the room to activate the androids as defense. Thinking quickly, Krillin charges a Destructo Disc and flings it at the doctor, cutting him in half. Gero isn't an android at this point, and 19 isn't created because that device he was working on was actually the energy absorption device, so this Destructo Disc actually works. So, because he's not an android, of course, this Destructo Disc wound is fatal, and Gero is done with. Piccolo prepares to destroy the android pods, but Krillin stops him. Krillin ends up getting the idea that maybe Bulma could reprogram these androids, and they don't need to kill them. They could end up making new allies for all they know. The other Z fighters arrive after hearing the commotion, and everyone sees what happens, and they end up agreeing with Krillin since this could benefit them. They look through the lab to see if they can find any blueprints that could be useful. Gohan stumbles upon some pod filled with liquid, and he calls everyone to come look at it. In this chamber, a green creature is floating around in it, and they see his pod is labeled as Cell. They look through all of the blueprints they found, and rummaging through them, they find out that there's actually another android here, and this is him. Although he's built a little bit differently than the other ones, he's a bio-android with the DNA of some of the Z fighters, and Frieza. Everyone carefully gathers the 4 pods up, and they bring them to Capsule Corp for further research. Bulma and Dr. Briefs work together to find out everything they can about these androids, because it's pretty fascinating. 16 is pretty easy to reprogram since he's all mechanical, and it pretty much goes the same as it did in canon, with the bomb being removed from him and him being reprogrammed. However, 17 and 18 are a little different. The 2 scientists realize that these aren't robots, they're cyborgs, they're actual people. They were probably turned into androids unwillingly by Gero and programmed with directives and maliciousness that they didn't have originally. Unlike 16, this brings up an ethical dilemma. Bulma can't just reprogram to be whatever they want like 16, since that would basically be removing their free will as a human. She and Dr. Briefs have morals unlike Gero, and wouldn't want to just change these guys into Capsule Corp slaves. They remove any directives from Gero about killing Goku and any other malicious pieces to their personality, but they don't want to reprogram the androids completely like 16. Their bombs are also removed as well, and their personalities are reverted to what they were before Gero got a hold of them, although they're now pretty good. But like I mentioned, Bulma didn't really just want to change their personalities completely, so they're still basically rowdy teenagers at heart like they were originally. So while they're not malicious anymore, they still have their free will, and the way they react to all of these events is completely unpredictable, even though they're good, so they're not really that trustworthy. The 3 androids are then left in the pods for the time being as they're being, well, updated. Cell is also a completely different case. The technology and the process of Cell's creation fascinates the 2 doctors, but there's one thing that doesn't really make sense. See, one thing that also never really made sense to me, which I want to include here: why wasn't Cell made to be perfect right away? Why did he need the androids? And as a side note, I couldn't really find anything on this either. Maybe I'm missing something, but a lot of people seem to speculate that it's because Cell is Gero's side project, and he never thought he needed Cell, and Cell would just get rid of the androids and do the job for them if necessary, but Gero probably never even saw that as necessary. Let me know below if you have any info or ideas on why he wasn't just made to be perfect in the first place, considering Gero already knew what perfection would be like, but he didn't make him that to start with, which doesn't really make sense to me. Anyways, Bulma sees this and decides to tweak Cell. The bad parts of Cell, like Frieza's personality and the like, are removed. His personality is tweaked to be good, and more of the DNA of the Z Fighters are added to him, like Gohan, Krillin, Tien, and Yamcha. Why are Bulma and Dr. Briefs doing this? Well, they realize Cell's immense power, and adding this DNA will make him fully aligned with the Z Fighters, while retaining the power of Cold and Frieza without their evil personality. In a way, this is kind of like how Tony Stark created Ultron in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for any of you Marvel fans out there. I mean, Ultron eventually became evil, but Tony Stark intended to make someone who could defend Earth, which is kind of what Cell is like here in a way. Not entirely, but I just wanted to make that connection because it's something I noticed while writing the script. With all of the Z Fighters present for assurance, the androids are awoken, except for Cell. 16 is of course trustworthy and good, but 17 and 18 are the ones that they're worried about. Actually, in this timeline, they're not even called 17 and 18. Given that Bulma tried to make them as normal as they could be, they're actually not referred to as 17 and 18, they're called by their real names, Lapis and Lazuli, respectively, instead of their android identity. Instead of just being enhanced expendable assassins created by Gero for revenge, they're just enhanced humans now. Bulma informs the 2 about what happened to them and how they were found and attempted to be recovered, and they're fine now but still have those android enhancements. They're actually a little bit excited to hear this, as they see this as being given superpowers. Remember, they are portrayed as being some sort of rebellious teenagers, which they still are like now, but they don't have the malicious intent that they had before. Of course, they're angered that this was ever done to them in the first place, but grateful that everyone around them tried to help them. They're still kinda in shock though, and overall don't really know how to react, given that they were basically kidnapped by a mad scientist and augmented, and they've been in a coma for a while. While they were excited at first, they're now rethinking everything as reality begins to hit them. But, as this video intended, the androids aren't bad now, they're good. They're pretty much akin to how they act currently in Dragon Ball Super, being a little blunt, straightforward, and sometimes a little bit rowdy, but they're actually good people. And with 16 being there as well, we still have him basically being the same. He still likes nature and wants to be kind of peaceful, and he ends up residing at Capsule Corp for the time being, with 17 and 18 being offered the same thing, but they end up going off on their own. And yes, Krillin does still get attracted to 18 and tries to make a move on her, and it actually kind of works. So they do keep in contact, even though the twins do leave and go off to be their own people, kind of like they were before they got enhanced. At this point of the awakening of the androids, we'll say 6 months have passed since Trunks' arrival, so this is happening like 2.5 years before the androids were supposed to awaken and Trunks returns. He did know about their plan to find the androids, but in case they couldn't, like I said before, Trunks decided that he would still return in 3 years just in case, so he can help them fight the mechanical menaces. Everyone still does train in this time period, just less intensely than normal. You may be wondering why I didn't mention Cell being awoken. Well, let's get into that. See, Cell wasn't like the other androids. He was being grown in a tube, not built. Bulma and Dr. Briefs, after making him sort of heroic and morally guided in the right direction, they attempted to speed up his growth as much as possible. They had better resources and technology than Gero, and they had all of Gero's knowledge. Besides, Cell was a side project for Gero, while he was pretty much the main project at Capsule Corp, so they spent more time on him. And his growth process was sped up, but not completely. It takes him about 2 years to hatch, quote-unquote, after he was found. And everyone is waiting patiently in the meantime. Goku especially, since he sees Cell as potentially being an amazing training partner. The time passes, and one day in Capsule Corp, while working, Bulma is alerted about something happening to that project she was working on with her father, and she realizes what's going on. Everyone senses an immense power and heads over to Capsule Corp. From the pod, a large figure steps out. looking calm but somewhat confused. He is speechless and he doesn't really know what's happening, since this is basically him being born when you think about it. In a state of awe, Cell looks up as he sees everyone begin to gather around him, realizing who they are and what he is and what's happening. He turns back to the pod and looks at a reflection of himself on the glass, and he recognizes something. He sees perfection. With his face of confusion turning to a sincere smile, Cell turns around and gives a deep sigh of relief as he closes his eyes and faces everyone. He proclaims, "I am perfect." Given that he has all the maliciousness removed, and the fact that he's perfect by default, Cell has no objective right now, and no imperfections in his conscience, no pun intended. He was born as a happy bioandroid, completely content. Remember how I compared him to Ultron before? Well, kind of imagine him now as being like Vision, an all-powerful being brought into existence as a force for good. Cell opens his eyes again, and he sees in front of him all of the Z-Fighters that made his DNA, his brothers and sister. Bulma added some of her DNA to add knowledge to the bioandroid for good measure. It's never a bad thing to have an intelligent fighter on their side. And there we have it. The androids and Cell are good. But this arc isn't over yet. You see, the Cell we have here is one from our present timeline, who was originally destroyed as an embryo. What about the Cell we know? He's still sulking around somewhere. Remember, he's from another alternate timeline where he killed Trunks and stole a time machine to come to the past and achieve perfection. But he's in for a big surprise, and Trunks will return soon, and we'll get into both of those in the next part. In the last part, it took 2 years for Cell to awaken, with Android 16 being the first to awaken, followed by 17 and 18 who are now referred to by their original human names, Lapis and Lazuli. This leaves another year before Trunks returns to ensure the plan worked, alongside Cell arriving from another timeline to find the androids. Over this time period, everyone gets to know Cell as he becomes accustomed to this world that he was brought into. Cell is the strongest member of the Z-Fighters at this point, being as strong as Cell was in the original timeline after achieving perfection. This is huge considering we're still at a point before the Android saga even begins, so everyone is only as strong as they were before then. It takes everyone some time to get used to Cell being there. They haven't really encountered the original Cell before, so it's not that weird because it's not like they're seeing a bad guy be good. It's just odd because he's a bioandroid and only looks partially human. I mean, he looks more human than semi-perfect or imperfect Cell would, so it's at least better than that. They don't even know about those forms. It's just odd because unlike Android 17, 18, or even 16, he looks a little different than them. Well, a lot different. Similar to Piccolo, he spends most of his time alone at first and doesn't really live with anyone since he has no need to, and he's basically free to do whatever he pleases. Of course, he's not completely detached from our protagonist. Goku is elated to have a new strong training partner, and from time to time he trains with Cell to improve his own strength. Vegeta at this point in the story isn't necessarily the best guy yet, he's still kind of an anti-hero, so he's not really as willing to train with Goku as Cell would be. That's not to say that Vegeta's still a bad guy, he's just in that period of time where he's transitioning from being bad to good, or as good as he turns out to be. Cell actually makes for an amazing teacher. He has all of the intelligence of Bulma, a large amount of power, and the techniques from most of the Z-Fighters and then some. While Goku doesn't really have much to learn from Cell in terms of martial arts and techniques, there is one person that does have a lot to learn: Gohan. Gohan does have to study still so he can become smart, but having Cell around gives him more opportunities to train. And also, Chi-Chi is fine with this since she feels that Cell might even be a good influence on Gohan. That's a really weird sentence to say, thinking Cell is a good influence on him. Anyways, she feels that since Cell has the intelligence of Bulma and is an insanely smart android by default, some of it could definitely rub off on Gohan since Cell could teach more than just fighting skills and techniques. Goku, Cell, and Gohan spend a lot of time training with each other. Even though everyone isn't training as intensely as they did before the Android saga, Goku, Cell, and Gohan are actually more powerful than they are at the beginning of the saga, just because Cell is around and he's an insanely powerful training partner. Gohan was actually able to learn Super Saiyan because Goku teaches him the technique more effectively with Cell there, as Cell not only helps Gohan become more powerful, but helps him learn how to control it easier as well. From time to time, Piccolo does join them, and since all he really does is train, he gets somewhat stronger as well. And since Vegeta is, well, Vegeta, he actually trains harder than normal on his own, since Kakarot is trying to surpass him once again. While he was hesitant before, he now ends up joining Goku after some time, and he becomes less of an anti-hero than before, from spending time with everyone, and actually turns closer to where he is now than where he was in the Android saga. Just not completely there yet, he still has a long way to go. But this further enforces his rivalry with Goku.
The purpose of him sparring with Kakarot is so he can attain a higher form of Super Saiyan as well. And Trunks is obviously still born during this time, since, the whole thing with Vegeta and Bulma still happens. Everyone else, however, is weaker than in canon, but not by much, since they do still train like normal, but not as intensely as they should. So the humans are kinda left behind, just because they didn't really see any reason to train harder than they normally were. The full 3 years pass, and Trunks arrives to where the androids should be, confused to find that none of the Z Fighters are there, but then he's relieved as he realizes the city's not in trouble, it's actually kinda peaceful. However, this is when it hits Trunks that their timelines are separate, since he realizes that the androids never left his timeline even if the androids are gone here. He heads off to Capsule Corp to find everyone else. While he's in the past, it's great that the androids are not a threat here, but he wants to get some training done so he can return to his own timeline and fix it himself, so consulting Vegeta or Goku could help him. He arrives at Capsule Corp and is greeted by a large man with orange hair and a Capsule Corp logo on his clothes, which of course is Android 16. Trunks is confused first of all since he's never seen this android before, and he's also perplexed as to why an android is living at Capsule Corp. Bulma then shows up and explains it all to Trunks, who is both surprised and impressed to see that the androids are now good thanks to Bulma's reprogramming. He asks where the other 2 androids are, 17 and 18, so Bulma tells him that now they're known as Lapis and Lazuli like they originally were, and they're off on their own. Lapis is a ranger on some island, and Lazuli is actually Krillin's girlfriend. Yeah, that still happens. Like I said in the last part, Krillin did make a move, and it worked, so good on him. They're not married yet, and there's no Marin yet, but they are dating, so it's a step forward. This is equally shocking to Trunks too. 17 of all people is protecting animals, and 18 is Krillin's girlfriend? It's kinda weird, but it lets him realize that the androids are truly good. After sensing Trunks' power, Gohan, Cell, and Goku head to Capsule Corp, and Bulma tells Trunks who Cell is. His raw power amazes Trunks, but then this makes him realize something. If there's a Cell here that's good, who was originally intended to be bad, but Cell never showed up in his timeline, that means he probably still has his own version of Cell that is still evil. And at this moment, a breaking story appears on TV. Residents from Gingertown have been disappearing and no one knows why. Cell sees the story and he has a solemn face. Although he's good now, he's still smart and somewhat remembers what he was originally supposed to be like. He knows what his tail was meant for and how he can absorb people with it, and he knows that this could only be the work of one person, himself. But if he's here, how could there be another Cell? Cell answers this by saying that Trunks traveled into the past, so who's to say another Cell wouldn't be able to do the same somehow? Maybe from another timeline, not even from Trunks's. Immediately, a group of Goku, Gohan, Trunks, Cell, and 16 head out to try and look for him. Cell knows that the original directives were to absorb the androids, so he suggests that they look for the androids first to protect them. Goku wants the instant transmission to Lapis, but he can't, since they can't sense the energy of the androids. Their only option is to fly there individually. However, they can at least teleport to Krillin and see if Lazuli is okay. For those who can sense power, they all feel a sharp increase in energy that suddenly disappears, and of course it's the energy of Krillin, combined with the signature that somewhat resembles Cell's. They know what's going on. Goku grabs onto all of them and they instant transmission to Krillin's home. They stop and they find that Krillin's home is destroyed, and they see Krillin unconscious laying on the floor, and Lazuli is nowhere to be found. Goku then teleports with Krillin to the lookout where he'll be safe, and he asks Kami and Popo to get some senzu beans from Korin. He comes back and the rest immediately head out to find Lapis. They can only hope to find him before the other Cell does. Once again, they feel that same power coming from the island Lapis is a ranger on, but it suddenly disappears. They go full speed ahead to search around, with Goku going to get Piccolo and Vegeta so they can come here as well. He gets back with the other two after using instant transmission, and they search around the island calling for Lapis. Gohan and Trunks stumble upon another awful sight as they see a large creature transforming, who looks a little bit like Cell, but not quite the same. They power up to Super Saiyan, with Trunks actually surprised to see that Gohan knows how to do this already. And the creature's transformation finishes as he turns around. Sure enough, it's the Cell that we know from the future. For simplicity, we'll just call him Future Cell to distinguish him from the Cell that we know. Future Cell turns around with an evil grin, and says a haunting phrase Gohan heard before when Cell was first awoken in their timeline. I am perfect. Everyone else rushes over to Future Cell with him entertained that everyone is now arriving. Tragedy strikes though. Goku and 16 arrive and Goku powers up to Super Saiyan, only to immediately fall back into base form and collapse. He never actually took the heart virus medicine. Vegeta and Piccolo get there and find Goku on the ground, and Trunks tells everyone that Goku needs to get back, with Piccolo volunteering to take him as he's the weakest here. Future Cell is disappointed. This welcoming party is pretty small, but he doesn't know that this isn't the whole group. Everyone looks up and smiles with joy, with Future Cell's face turned to one of pure shock. Impossible! Present Cell descends from the sky to meet the monster he always was intended to be. It's odd, seeing a mirror image of himself before him, someone who is pretty much no different than him except for a few changes in DNA and programming. So, this is what I was meant to be. How disgusting. Other than Future Cell being green, with Present Cell being a bluish color, they're pretty much identical. But there's two key differences here, their DNA and training. Cell from the present timeline has the same DNA of him in the future, but also has some added on top of it, such as some DNA and implemented knowledge from Bulma which makes him a lot smarter, or the added DNA of the Z fighters such as Gohan, which increases power and potential even farther. Along with that, Future Cell only just became perfect and hasn't trained a day in his life. Present Cell has been perfect for a while, and he's been doing nothing but training. While the increase in power isn't too substantial, he definitely outclasses Future Cell. The two stare down each other.
While the difference in power isn't absurd, Cell has a clear advantage over Future Cell. He's been perfect for longer and has really been doing nothing but training, and not to mention was born with better and more DNA, along with much more data, and being a lot smarter. He's definitely more advantaged. He also knows his own weaknesses and strengths, but that's a double-edged sword because the same goes for Future Cell. Angered and confused to see another version of himself here, one who's challenging his perfection, Future Cell attacks first, but Cell blocks it with his own blast. Heh, do you really think you'll be able to attack me when I know everything about you? You aren't true perfection. I am perfection. Cell fights back and is beginning to gain the upper hand. Having more refined fighting style and knowing exactly how Future Cell fights and acts, he's able to fight very well against himself. The fight lasts for a bit, while Cell tries to think of a way to save Lapis and Lazuli while also defeating Future Cell. He gets an idea that actually works. He gets an idea to deliver a few powerful gut punches to his future self, and it does exactly what he wants. Future Cell coughs up Lapis, who he just absorbed, and his perfection regresses. I didn't expect that to work, but let's try it again. Cell follows up with another punch to Future Cell's gut, and this time he throws up Lazuli. He's now imperfect once again. Now he's in a bad spot. Cell is glad that the fight was this easy, but Future Cell has one more trick up his sleeve, blowing himself up. But Cell obviously knows about this and was prepared. While the rest of the Z Fighters are distraught, Cell smiles at them and assures them not to worry. Without hesitation, as Future Cell begins to inflate, Cell grabs onto his tail and flies at maximum speed into space, well out of Earth's range now. He flings Future Cell off into the distance, and to ensure that he won't come back to life by some dumb luck, like regenerating because his core doesn't get injured, Cell prepares a Kamehameha towards his future self. It's a shame that I'll have to take you out, but I have no other choice. Right as Future Cell is about to explode in the distance, Cell launches a Kamehameha towards the explosion. Given that Future Cell is imperfect, his explosion is nothing compared to the blast. The Kamehameha completely swallows the explosion and destroys the remaining pieces of Future Cell. Relieved, Cell returns back to Earth to inform everyone that all is well now. Well, that was a pretty quick Cell saga. The Dragon Balls are gathered to revive everyone killed by Future Cell, and since Kami is still around, they're only able to make one wish on the Dragon Balls anyways, but they don't really need to make any others right now. It turned out pretty good. One thing still concerns everyone though. While Cell was able to defeat Future Cell, everyone else was too underpowered and couldn't handle that. If any future threats come, they need to be prepared, in case Cell ends up being outmatched. This only motivates everyone to train even further. Everything is well and good, but not for Trunks. He still isn't able to defeat the androids. Goku has a suggestion though. While not able to tap into it yet, Goku, Vegeta, and Gohan all know that higher levels of Super Saiyan exist. So far in their training, they've actually unlocked Grade 2 and have accessed Grade 3 for a bit, but not Grade 4, otherwise known as Mastered Super Saiyan. Grade 3 is pretty useless in battle as we've seen, and Vegeta probably would have used Grade 2, aka Super Vegeta, but there wasn't any fighting for them to even have him show it off. During those 3 years, they've learned a bit about the higher forms of Super Saiyan, but they theorize that they're just scratching the surface and there's something higher than what they have right now, and maybe they can help Trunks access it. Kami, who's been watching everything, wants to help Trunks and suggests that he uses the hyperbolic time chamber to grow stronger in a short period of time. Like I said last episode, Vegeta's character has also progressed to the point where he's more like he is in the Buu saga, and because of that, and the fact that he sees this as a way to surpass Kakarot, he steps up to the plate and offers to train with his son in there. No one else needs to go in there. Trunks just needs to use it with someone so he doesn't have to stay in this timeline for a while, and he can return and kill whatever androids are there. He'd rather get back to his timeline quickly, so this ends up working out. And since the time chamber is pretty brutal, and they don't need the training right now, no one else really has any incentive to go in there. This is solely done to help Trunks, unlike how it was used in canon. For a day, the two of them head in and the benefits of their training show. Knowing that grade 3 is useless, Vegeta and Trunks work on perfecting Super Saiyan rather than trying to use that bulky form. Because of his head start on learning the aspects of Super Saiyan, Vegeta is able to perfect the form, and Trunks is as well. With this new power, Trunks is more than confident enough that he can defeat the androids, and that's all he needs. He says goodbye and thanks everyone, as he heads back to his timeline, where he ends up victorious. In the main timeline, now that Vegeta has mastered Super Saiyan, Goku of course wants to learn it, and so does Gohan. Now we arrive at the 7-year time skip. With the 7 years, a lot has happened, so let's give a brief description. Krillin and Lazuli are married, and they now have a daughter Marin. Android 16 has gone off to join Lapis in protecting animals on his island. Cell of course has remained around the rest of the Z Fighters, occasionally training. Obviously, Goten is born and becomes friends with Trunks like normal, and the two of them spend a lot of time training and become Super Saiyans, pretty much like in the original story. Goku and Gohan have perfected Super Saiyan thanks to training with Vegeta and Cell, and they were also able to discover Super Saiyan 2. While Gohan's at school now, he keeps up with his training occasionally, although he isn't dedicated to it full time. This is still a lot better than in canon, and he's actually the strongest Saiyan right now due to his higher potential. And yes, he still becomes the Great Saiyaman and meets Videl. Cell has also gotten stronger because he's really only been doing nothing but training. He remains as the strongest of the group, and he's having a pretty good life. He spends most of his time with the other Z Fighters, and whenever one is busy, it doesn't really matter because he always has other people to be with. He becomes pretty social with everyone, given that he's naturally charismatic and shares a lot of DNA with these people, so he's able to form some pretty good connections. While he does train with Goku, Gohan, Vegeta, Piccolo, and even Goten and Trunks, he actually trains with people like Tien, Yamcha, and even sometimes with Krillin and Lazuli. Everyone is pretty much having a better 7 years because there was really no threat when future Cell arrived. Unfortunately, we all know there's more that'll happen. The World Tournament arrives, but this time, it's kinda rigged. What I mean by that is because of Cell being present, a lot more of the main cast joins the tournament this time and gets in over the other contestants. Pintar, Killa, Jewel, and Mighty Mask aren't able to make it in this time. Instead, we have Cell, Tien, Yamcha, and even Lapis who join. Without Mighty Mask, Goten and Trunks can't join either by disguising as him. And because of all the new contestants, the fights actually change a bit. First, we get Tien versus Krillin, and the fight's pretty close, but Tien ends up pulling ahead because he was more consistent with training. Next is Piccolo, who's up with Shin. He steps up to confront Shin, and he immediately forfeits. Next is Videl versus Spopovich, and you all know how that goes. We get to see Gohan versus Kibito, and Gohan powers up to appease him. While this is happening, Cell has been keeping an eye on that Spopovich guy after what he just pulled, while everyone is focused on Gohan's fight. Cell realizes something is wrong, and as Spopovich and Yamu make their move, he shouts out to Gohan. Gohan's actually able to dodge the attack, as the two Majin servants are now rapidly trying to stab Gohan. Kibito and Shin are alert because Cell kinda messed up their whole plan by warning Gohan, but they can't really blame him. Using his accurate aim, Tien is paying attention from the sidelines and fires a beam directly at the pot that they're using to collect the energy and shatters it. The tournament has pretty much turned to complete chaos at this point, and the two of them retreat. As the two Majin servants leave, Shin and Kibito fill everyone in, and then they head off and are followed by basically everyone at the tournament. The only people that don't go are Lazuli, Videl, and Yamcha, as Yamcha is going to stay back with Puar and Chaozu who are spectating. Videl's not strong enough, and for the android twins, well, Lazuli stays behind because she wants the money, but Lapis actually ends up tagging along because he doesn't really care about the tournament. So now the tournament has 4 of their contestants left, with one of them already being eliminated, so no one knows how it's supposed to continue. Pretty confused, they decide to just do a battle royale between the 4 contestants. And after what happened with Videl, they let her back into the tournament, because they don't really want to do the battle royale with just 3 people. They'll have her join. And it's a pretty weird mix because it's Lazuli, Yamcha, Videl, and Mr. Satan. And obviously because she's more powerful than everyone else there, Lazuli ends up winning. Only until she gets bribed by Mr. Satan. As for the kids part of the tournament, Trunks still ends up winning against Goten. Far away from the tournament, the Z Fighters, along with Lapis, who usually doesn't join them, and the two Kais all arrive at Babidi's ship. Yamu and Spopovich are killed, and Babidi heads into the ship to let Deborah play with everyone. Deborah starts out by attacking Cell, but Cell is actually more than strong enough to defend against this attack. Keeping his ki suppressed made him seem kinda weak, and Deborah thinks he's successful in killing Cell, but Cell is pretty much unscathed by the attack. That's 2 what-ifs in a row where I have Deborah fight Cell. Interesting. But this is no normal matchup between the two because, well, Cell is a lot stronger in this timeline, as I've already covered. Shin warns Cell about Deborah's spit, right as the Demon King spits towards Cell and it hits his arm.
Oh no! I'm turning to stone! Ah!
Cell plays along and then chuckles as he cuts his arm off and regenerates it.
How do you like my acting?
You know, I would apologize for doing the Cell voice so much in this video, but it's just too fun for me not to do it. Deborah actually looks shocked, and before he knows it, Cell is behind him. He turns around to see the Bugman smiling, and tries to attack, but he's nothing but a plaything for Cell. With a quick blast, Cell kills Deborah. Is this really supposed to be the power of the Demon Realm's king? How pathetic. Cell scoffs, and now with Deborah out of the way, the entire group, with no one dying this time, ends up heading into the ship to stop Babidi. After the relatively easy defeat of Deborah, the group is perfectly intact. Krillin and Piccolo aren't statues, and Kibito is alive, so they're way better off than the original story. First, the group faces Pui Pui, who takes no effort to defeat. It goes pretty much as quickly as it did normally. Next, we have Yakon, and he's fodder as well. The group descends into the next floor, and there's no one there. Babidi is freaking out, and they've reached the floor that he's supposed to be on, with all of his other fighters having been defeated. And on top of that, he really needs some more energy. Wait a second, he gets an idea. Maybe he could just possess someone. Yeah, no chance. Babidi desperately searches for different people that he can take under his control. The top choices obviously would be Cell, Lapis, and Vegeta, but really, there's nothing he can do to them. Since Goku is alive, Vegeta is content and has no need to willingly be possessed. As for Cell and Lapis, all malice was removed from them, and Babidi has no way to reverse it. Had this been the original Cell, it may have worked, but since this Cell was born as a good guy, he can't really do anything, and pretty much the same thing goes for Lapis. Eventually, the Z Fighters go and find Babidi, and are able to kill him pretty easily. Shin and Kibito are really relieved, and now they could just go and get rid of Boo's egg and not have to worry about him anymore. Shin thanks everyone for their help, and tells everyone that he'll have Beerus dispose of the egg. Besides Vegeta, this is the first time anyone's actually hearing of Beerus, but they'll have to wait to actually meet him. The prospect of an ultra-powerful god enthuses Goku and Cell, with Vegeta being a bit concerned about him being brought up again, having remembering him from the past. Beerus is still asleep, and once he's awake, Shin will have him dispose of the egg. Well, that's pretty much it for the Boo Saga, I guess. Or lack thereof of the Boo Saga. There's no real point in even calling it the Boo Saga since there was no Boo to begin with. It was a lot easier to take care of Boo than Shin and Kibito expected. Having Cell there was really helpful, since he killed Deborah, which means they had no trouble fighting Babidi and his minions. Also, Goku having been alive means no Majin Vegeta, so it all went pretty well. Babidi couldn't get enough energy to awaken Boo, and that led to his defeat. Peace is restored, and the group lives pretty normally for the next few years. Goku, Vegeta, and Cell keep training, with Gohan falling a bit behind but doing some occasional training. Of course, Lapis is back on his island doing his usual training, which is stopping poachers. Unlike Android 17 in the original story though, Lapis actually keeps in touch with the group and is around sometimes. Goku and Cell were both intrigued when hearing about Beerus. After learning more from Vegeta, well at least as much as Vegeta knew, it got them more motivated to train. Not much interesting happens from this training though. Goku and Vegeta end up discovering Super Saiyan 3, and they think it's cool at first, but then they both realize that the form is useless after feeling the stamina drain. They don't pursue any further training with the form, because while the form is powerful, the stamina loss is a terrible drawback and it's not really viable in actual fighting. They'll just continue working on Super Saiyan 2 instead. Cell doesn't get anything new either in terms of forms, but he does still get stronger. Yep, no golden Kaioken Cell or whatever I did in that one What If. Oh my god, I don't even want to think about that. Jokes aside, the three of them are relatively on par, with Goku and Vegeta being pretty much as strong as they were in canon thanks to the constant training with each other and Cell. It becomes a lot more effective than normal. Time passes and we arrive at Bulma's birthday party. Goku is present this time, and he's not with King Kai, and everyone is having a good time at the party. And actually, Lapis is present this time too. Like I said, he's been a little bit more involved with the group over these past few years, and isn't as disconnected as he was before. I mean, Lazuli and Krillin are always around, and they want him to join in sometimes, and he does whenever 16 can take care of the island for him. It's nice to have 16 there with him, as Lapis and his family can go on these cruises and stuff that he's always wanted to do. And it's a win for 16 too because, well, he's doing what he loves, protecting animals. Out of nowhere though, Goku and Vegeta get a message from King Kai, warning them about Beerus' arrival on Earth. Whis made sure that he would destroy Boo's egg first, which he does right away, but soon after that, he's already pursuing the Super Saiyan God that he saw in his dreams. He ends up arriving at the party with Whis, and the encounter is actually somewhat smooth. Beerus and Whis have a great time, especially because of the food, and there's no pudding incident due to the absence of Boo. Beerus is pretty impressed with this planet, but he reminds everyone why he's actually here. He's here for a fight. Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and Cell all attempt to fight him individually, but no one can even leave a scratch on him. He's getting a bit disappointed, but then the idea of asking Shenron comes up, and the dragon is summoned so everyone can learn about the ritual. The ritual is attempted, and it doesn't work, but then they realize they need one more Saiyan. Not an issue. Cell joins in, and due to him being part Saiyan, it actually ends up working. Videl didn't even have to reveal that she was pregnant, not that it really matters. The ritual happens, and they decide to give the form to Goku, who is the current strongest pure Saiyan. Everyone is amazed at the power he has now, and his fight with Beerus commences. It's a lot more friendly this time, as Beerus doesn't have the malice towards Earth that he had originally. He's glad to have found Goku in this planet, and tells Goku that he wants to see more of him as he could be a potential rival. And on top of that, he saw how powerful Vegeta had gotten, and also that adult half Saiyan that is Goku's son or something, he seems pretty strong. And that android guy, who's blue for some reason, he seems like he's also pretty strong. At least, that's what Beerus could gather from fighting these guys very briefly. He feels that they could potentially be stronger in the future as well, but is mainly focused on Goku, who's already gotten the Super Saiyan God form. This planet Earth is pretty interesting. The two Saiyans, that one half Saiyan, that one blue android he fought, and even those two twin androids that apparently have infinite stamina, this place is both fascinating and weird, and the food's pretty great too. Over the next period of time, Goku and Vegeta end up training with Beerus, and since Cell has nothing else to really do, he joins as well. Goku and Cell of course ask Gohan to come, but he can't just leave Earth like that now that he has a family. He promises to keep up with his training though, or at least try to. Remember that one What If I did where Cell became golden and got Kaioken? Just like I said before, yeah, don't worry about it. Hindsight is 20/20 and I realize how terrible that was, so I'm not going to be doing something like that here. But I will say that in training, Cell gets access to God Ki. No new transformation though, he doesn't turn red, golden, purple, whatever. But you know, if he turned purple I might be able to bring Incredicell into the story. Imagine if I actually did that. But yeah, no new transformation. He gets an exceptional boost in power though, and of course, Vegeta unlocks Super Saiyan God as well, with he and Goku also accessing Super Saiyan Blue eventually. However, while Cell doesn't get a golden form, which frankly I'm glad that I don't have to introduce Golden Cell again, someone else is on the verge of getting their own golden form. One day, Gohan and Piccolo are able to sense some strange powers arriving to Earth, and not long after, they can also tell that someone's using the Dragon Balls once the sky turns black. What was that? Little do they know, Frieza is being revived. This part goes pretty much as it does normally. Frieza's revived, he begins training for 4 months, and then he ends up accessing his golden form. He's pretty intrigued to see what training can actually do for him, even though he hasn't done so in a day in his life. With just 4 months, he was able to do that, which is pretty amazing. But not wanting to train any longer, Frieza decides to head to Earth. And safe to say, it doesn't really go well for him. First, the Z-Fighters are up against the Frieza Force, once again with Lapis joining in, including Lazuli too. With Lapis around more, Lazuli also does a lot more training too, especially with Krillin. So she and Krillin don't really fall as far behind as they did before. It's not like they're exceptionally stronger though, it's just something that's worth pointing out. The strongest one there right now is Gohan, but remember in this timeline, Gohan only has access to Super Saiyan 2. But by default, he's already better off in this story than he was in Resurrection F, because he actually did kind of keep up with his training, and he could use Super Saiyan 2 this time with no problems, and of course Super Saiyan. None of that nonsense before where he could barely use Super Saiyan. However, even though the group can take care of the Frieza Force pretty easily, they don't really stand a chance against Frieza. The only ones with any chance of getting close to Frieza are Gohan and Lapis, but they can't really do that much once he goes into his final form. Together, the two of them are actually able to keep up with Frieza in his final form, but not much past that. Once Frieza goes golden, yeah, they're pretty much screwed. Oh wait, maybe not. Having sensed the powers on Earth and the distress signal, Goku teleports in with Vegeta and Cell, and they begin to take on Frieza. Well, it's not even really that much of a fight. The three of them do rock, paper, scissors to see who can go first, and Cell's actually the one to win the contest and go up against Frieza. It's kinda interesting for him. Realizing that he was once part Frieza, and pretty much as evil as him, it's kinda weird fighting him now. But knowing all about Frieza and what he's like, Cell doesn't want to take any chances. While Goku probably wouldn't even kill Frieza, and Vegeta would probably hesitate against him, Cell doesn't do either of these. He actually finishes the job and gets it done. Being a much smarter fighter, yeah, he doesn't want to take the risk of having Frieza running around again. And you may be wondering, why is Cell strong enough to take on Frieza anyways? Well, even though he's not getting any new transformations, given the way that he's built with his DNA and such, he gets a lot bigger boost when training when compared to Goku and Vegeta. The makeup of his DNA really helps him. He has part of Goku and Vegeta's DNA, and also has a little bit of Gohan and Trunks in there, so he has all the potential of the Saiyans and the Half Saiyans. And while the bad parts of Frieza and King Cold were removed, like the personality, the good parts of their biology, like the parts that allow them to survive in space and that let them become really strong, yeah, those ones are kept in. So yeah, just because of that, his training allowed him to keep up with Goku and Vegeta, even though he doesn't have a new form, only God Ki. Resurrection F goes a lot smoother than normal. No blowing up Earth, no time reversal, none of that. However, Universe 7 is about to face another challenge, that being Universe 6. Champa goes to Beerus' planet, and they decide to have a tournament, and of course, Goku, Vegeta, and Cell are on the team right away, and they need to find 2 more members. Piccolo is chosen right away because he's available and strong, but as for the 5th fighter, well, they're not really sure. They would have gone for Gohan right away, but seems like he's busy. I mean, if worse comes to worse, they could just try and convince him even further and get him to move his schedule around a bit, but they decide to look for someone else right now, and they find an unlikely candidate, Lapis. Yeah, Lapis is showing up a lot more in this scenario, and he's often there to help out. Given that he has 16 to protect his island whenever he's gone, he's fine with leaving, and you know, if he can't protect Earth and Earth gets destroyed, then there's no island to protect, so really the top priority is Earth itself. So now Universe 7 has a new team, Goku, Vegeta, Cell, Piccolo, and Lapis. They head off to the unknown planet, and the tournament is about to begin. Before the fight, Goku and Vegeta head into the Room of Spirit and Time like normal in order to train some more beforehand. After the time passes, the tournament itself begins. The order of the Universe 6 fighters remains the same, there's no reason for it to really change. While the order for Universe 7 goes as follows: Goku, Piccolo, Lapis, Vegeta, and finally Cell. The fights between Goku and Batamo and Goku and Frost go like normal, as does the one with Piccolo and Frost. No need to really cover it in depth since they're the same. Following Piccolo's defeat, Lapis is now up against Frost. Everyone knows about the poison needles by this point, but I mean, Lapis doesn't really seem like one who would care about that, and he's up to fight Frost anyways. In terms of power and skill, Frost is greatly outmatched here. Lapis's android physiology, his techniques, and his strength all outmatch Frost basically in every field, and Lapis is able to outmaneuver the space pirate pretty easily. Frost gets angered with his attacks not landing, and Lapis doesn't really want to deal with Frost's hissy fit. As soon as Frost loses his cool, Lapis uses it as an opening to attack. With only a few hits, Frost is suddenly knocked out of the ring and defeated. Lapis gets a flawless victory against Frost, without a scratch on him. Went pretty well. Since 17 in the regular story is able to keep up with Super Saiyan Blue Goku when they first fought, I'm gonna assume that Lapis is just beneath where Goku and Vegeta are at the moment, since those two are stronger in this scenario, and since he's an android with the infinite energy engine, Lapis can fight at full power without worrying about stamina or energy loss, so he was basically at full power against Frost here the entire time. He doesn't need to worry about pacing himself or whatever. That's only something those pesky humans and Saiyans need to worry about, and I guess Namekians and Cell and whatever other races are present. Anyways, next, the android is up against Magetta. Magetta tries to suffocate Lapis out of the arena, but Lapis is able to find his weakness and take care of him before he does lose too much oxygen. He may have infinite energy and stamina, but that doesn't mean Lapis can't be suffocated in a situation like this. He still takes battle damage and stuff like that, and obviously, the infinite energy engine isn't going to save him from not having oxygen. But since his stamina doesn't drain, being suffocated here by Magetta's heat attack means that Lapis would most likely be able to get back to full power once he catches his breath. It's just not a condition that he wants to be fighting in the entire time. But obviously it's better than if he were a normal human, because if that were the case, then he would be out of breath and would have suffered significant stamina loss. Now, Lapis faces Cabba. Cabba is a kind-hearted guy, surprising for a Saiyan to say the least, and Lapis doesn't go too hard on him since this kid seems respectful, but Lapis does still win with little trouble. That means there's two big differences here. One being that Vegeta and Cabba don't form their master and student bond like usual, and as a side effect of that means Cabba doesn't get Super Saiyan or even learn about it existing, which will have effects later on in the Tournament of Power. Finally, Lapis is up against Hit. Lapis has swept everyone so far except for Batamo, who he didn't fight, so he's a little cocky here, but he still thinks relatively clearly. He's surprised to see how strong Hit actually is once he tries to attack him. Lapis pulls out all his techniques and is using his full power like before, using barriers, ki blast, all of that. With Hit's time skip being good against close range melee attacks, Lapis sees one option that he could use in order to trip Hit up. Similar to what he did against Jiren late in the Tournament of Power after he was revealed to be still alive, Lapis rushes towards Hit and creates a barrier around the both of them, charging up a massive ki blast and quickly jumping back. Hit may have his time skip, but a barrier like this with an attack surrounding him, it's not something he's going to be able to escape from. Lapis jumps back and his attack did land and deal some damage, but not enough. And it did also damage Lapis himself. But still, he was able to get a couple scratches and burns on Hit. It wasn't a particularly strong attack, because he didn't want himself to be killed, but it was still enough to injure both of them considerably and noticeably. However, before he even knows it, Hit sends a blast of pressurized air towards Lapis, which knocks the android out of the ring. Hit is actually kinda injured from Lapis' attack like I mentioned, as is Lapis, but Hit can still fight. Plus, his time skip hasn't improved very much since his fight with Lapis was very short in comparison to what it was against Goku, and this is good because Vegeta's up against him next. I will say Hit did improve though, but at most, I would estimate it's only about 1/10 of a second and not something crazy like a half second. Vegeta faces Hit now, and knows all about the time skip after watching it against the Lapis, so all he has to do is figure out a way to work around it. Lapis helped out Vegeta a lot by weakening Hit as well, meaning Hit is more susceptible to attacks right now. Not to mention, Vegeta is stronger in this scenario due to his training with Beerus being more effective since Cell is there as well, but most importantly, Hit made a fatal flaw. He explained that he improved against Lapis, even though it wasn't by very much, and that he keeps improving as fights go on. Doing so lets Vegeta realize that he has to handle Hit kinda quickly. Vegeta knows Hit's ability, how it works, and how it'll prove if he drags the fight on too long. Plus, Hit has been weakened here and Vegeta is stronger than normal. All of those factors combined means Vegeta has a huge upper hand here. Being the master strategist that he is, Vegeta realizes that the best way to counter Hit's time skip is to be unpredictable and basically attack at random. Hit knows what move Vegeta will make next, but if Vegeta himself erratically changes his movements when attacking, not even knowing himself how he's going to attack, then Hit won't be able to do as well against Vegeta. Vegeta goes to his maximum power output and attacks Hit. He trips Hit up by using predictable moves first and dodging Hit's counters, but then he catches Hit off guard by using very erratic movements. Hit is completely caught off guard, and this is a good opportunity for Vegeta. Hit is basically stunned now, so Vegeta can pull off a combo, and he has to make it quick. Vegeta is able to knock Hit in the air with a few kicks and punches, and before Hit even realizes it, Vegeta has jumped up far above him and is charging an attack. Hit tries to brace himself, but he's mid-air so he can't really do anything to maneuver around it. Vegeta fires a final flash that launches Hit out of the arena, into the ground outside of it. Hit moves his arms from his face and realizes that he was able to actually block the attack, but then he looks down at the ground and realizes that he's not in the arena. He was too focused on blocking the attack and trying to counter Vegeta, but it didn't work at all. Hit places his hands back in his pocket, and gives off a little chuckle. He'd be lying if he said that wasn't impressive what Vegeta just pulled off. Vegeta has defeated Hit, and Universe 7 has won. Cell didn't even get to fight sadly, but he had his fun against Frieza in the last part, so this is kinda fair. It lets Vegeta get a little bit of a chance to shine. The tournament concludes like normal, and now we can head into the future Trunks arc. But oh no, it's not Goku Black this time, and it's not Vegeta Black either. This time, it's something unique and different, but it's probably one of my stupidest, headcanon-ridden, craziest ideas yet. But I want to spice things up instead of doing Goku or Vegeta Black like always. And not only will this be a nice change of pace, but this one also has an explanation behind it, so it's not just something I'm pulling out of my ass. I mean, if we're being fair here, Dragon Ball always does like to pull stuff out of thin air and have a lot of ass pulls in it, so even if you want to consider that, I guess it's kind of fitting. Okay, enough kidding around. Trunks arrives back in the past and is found by Bulma, who gets Goku and Vegeta to come over to help him. Trunks is glad to see these two, and that means he's safe and has made it back to the past, with other people like Cell, Gohan, Beerus, Whis, and everyone else arriving as well to see what's happening. Trunks explains why he's back here, and how he's facing another threat in the future. However, the threat is someone he didn't really expect, someone who he knows for a fact died. The reason he knows that this person should be dead is because it was someone Trunks killed on his own, and he doesn't think it's someone different either. He thinks it's the same person somehow having had come back to life. Out of nowhere, a portal appears in the sky. The villain is revealed, with Trunks knowing it must be the person he suspected. Goku, Vegeta, and everyone are equally shocked to find out who the villain actually is. Trunks can only mutter one word. Actually, a number. 17. The same android that Trunks once killed is back, Android 17. Although, his attire is a little bit different, but he's very much malicious and looks exactly like that same android that Trunks once killed. Obviously, you guys all know this is actually Zamasu, but the group just assumes it's Future 17 again. Wait. Hold on. Of all the people, Zamasu took 17's body? Why? Well, I could hear you in the comments already, but I do have a reasoning behind it. It's not just to spice things up. Zamasu was watching the Universe 6 tournament and was appalled by what he saw. 2 Saiyans using godly powers, and then 2 androids there that were made by humans trying to play God and create life forms. He is disgusted by this. Not only do these mortals make a mockery of godly powers, but now they're trying to play God and create androids and trying to create their own life forms. Creating things is a job of the Kais. Why are these mortals doing it? Seeing these androids gets him even angrier than before. Zamasu this time ends up stealing the body of 17, or Lapis in this scenario. But why him? Well, he didn't see Goku fight much, so he doesn't really have any reason to steal his body. And for Cell didn't fight at all either, so Zamasu doesn't care too much about him. Vegeta showed off great power, and he has the ability to get stronger as he fights, although he seems to have limitations in terms of maintaining his high power for a long time. On the other hand, Lapis is there, who is close to the strength of Vegeta, and yeah, he's a little bit behind and he doesn't have the ability to get Zenkais, but he has infinite energy and stamina, which is a huge plus. It's definitely not something to underestimate. It's a tough choice, but Zamasu ends up stealing the body of Lapis. He didn't steal Goku's body just due to the fact that he was using godly powers. A big part of it mainly is due to the ability that Saiyans have to grow stronger. He explained this himself. It wouldn't really make much sense to do the Zero Mortals plan if he stole a mortal's body without any other reasoning behind it. It's not like he stole Goku's body just for fun. He had a reasoning behind it. So it's pretty much the same here, except it's for Lapis. He could fight at full power all the time, not worrying about transformations or whatever. And besides, Zamasu considers androids like Lapis and Cell monstrosities due to how he viewed them as the results of humans playing God. He doesn't even really see them as pure mortals like someone like Goku or Vegeta. In his eyes, they may as well not even be human at all. So this is a bit better than stealing the body of someone like Vegeta. But again, that's not even the main reason. It's all because of the fact that he has infinite stamina, much like how he stole Goku's body for Zenkais, and that is a very valuable thing to have in a fight. But yeah, this is definitely 17 alright. His clothes look a little different, and he has an earring on and a ring for some reason that no one really knows why. Well, Beerus and Whis are quick to pick up on it, but no one else really notices or questions it yet. Like I said though, no one knows this is Zamasu, they're just really confused. And this works in Zamasu's favor because they don't even suspect that it's someone stealing someone else's body. They just think 17 is alive again from the future somehow. But Beerus and Whis did pick up on the fact that he has a Patara earring on one ear and he has the time ring, so they get very suspicious. This might not be 17 like everyone's suspecting. It might be someone entirely different, or even a new android in general. But we're gonna leave all that for the next part, and see what they'll do to actually find out the actual origins behind this so-called 17 Black, I guess? I don't know, that's kind of a weird name. There's no reason for anyone to call him Black. They just think that he's Android 17 from the future, and they just call him that. It's not even confusing for them because, well, 17 doesn't exist in their timeline, it's only Lapis. As I mentioned in the last part, everyone just refers to him as 17 because they don't know it's an actual imposter. This obviously isn't Lapis, it's the original Android 17, or so they think. Just like when Goku Black showed up, everyone's pretty confused, but for different reasons, wondering how Android 17 could have been revived. Who would even want that, and how would that even be accomplished because there's no Dragon Balls in the future? It's all very suspicious. While there, he takes the opportunity to destroy Trunks' time machine, and then provokes a fight. Since he has all the data on the androids, Cell decides to fight him because he thinks it'll be an easy battle. So the bio-android confronts him. This Android 17 Black is actually decently strong and he's very defensive, using the barrier techniques and such. But he's nowhere near the level of someone like Cell. Cell notices something interesting during the fight. This Android 17 is fighting a lot differently than what he would expect, and upon a closer look he notices some interesting things. 17 realizes that he's kinda out of his league here, so he retreats, before Cell could do any real damage to him. Cell returns to the group and brings up something that he noticed. For some reason this Android 17 was wearing a really weird earring and some ring on his finger. Yeah, it could just be some weird fashion choice, but it's a good thing that he brought this up, since Beerus and Whis pick up on it and realize that these are the time ring and a Patara earring. And knowing that Kais are the ones to use time rings, this gets them very suspicious. And they even have an idea as to who might be behind this. Beerus and Whis realize that this might not actually be Android 17 revived, but rather someone working for a Kai for some reason or another. Otherwise, how would he be able to use a time ring? Over the next few days, Beerus and Whis begin doing their research on Zamasu, the person who they suspect is behind this. While Trunks spends time with everyone in this timeline, since he needs to wait for Bulma to repair the time machine now. Bulma even makes some adjustments to the time machine, making it a little bit bigger so Cell can fit inside and they can bring back more people. Because when Cell used the time machine before, he had to actually revert back to his larval state. Well, not this Cell, the future Cell had to do that, but you know what I mean. A few days pass and eventually the time machine is repaired. So while Goku goes with Beerus and Whis to meet Zamasu, Trunks, Vegeta, and Cell all go to the future timeline. When they arrive, they eventually do see 17 Black again, and they begin fighting him. Here's where Zamasu made a grave miscalculation. Sure, Lapis is pretty strong by default, and he has infinite energy, but Zamasu doesn't have full control over this body, so he can't use the power to its full potential, kinda like with Goku Black. And also, not having Zenkais is a big deal, because while Goku Black would have got stronger from that same fight with Cell before, 17 Black here doesn't. He's still the same strength. Zamasu kinda did know this, and he strategizes by fighting with brute force, since he doesn't need to worry about energy, so he utilizes powerful attacks in his fight. He's pretty much a glass cannon, since his defense isn't as strong besides having the barriers. But he can use attacks at maximum power. He is able to hold his own for a bit, but against Cell, Vegeta, and Trunks, he's not really going to stand a chance. Vegeta is about to deliver the finishing blow, but suddenly, Zamasu intervenes and saves him. From here they learn who Zamasu is, and they learn about 17 Black's true identity. They try and fight Zamasu as well, but he's immortal, and they figure that out pretty quickly. The thing is here, there's no real need to retreat. Zamasu and 17 Black aren't really as formidable of a force as Goku Black and Zamasu would be, considering the fact that 17 Black is weaker, and because Zamasu isn't really insanely strong in the first place. It's really the immortality that's an issue. They actually stick around and try fighting them, and I'm gonna say now that it's a bit anticlimactic. A fight like this wouldn't really move in 17's favor. I mean, Cell or Vegeta alone would be enough to kill him, but you got both of them there. It's not really that hard either. All they need to do is split him up from Zamasu and then take the opportunity to take him out, which they promptly end up doing. Trunks is amazed at how easily they were able to take out this threat, but it's still not over since they have Zamasu there. No matter how much they try, they can't kill him because he's immortal. They try everything at their disposal, brute force, combined beam attacks, everything. Even when they destroy every piece of him, he still comes back. They're about to retreat back to the main timeline to figure something out, but Cell gets a weird idea that he thinks is worth testing out. He basically says to himself, screw it, and tries to absorb Zamasu. I mean, what other option do they really have? While facing Vegeta and Trunks, Cell goes behind Zamasu and begins absorbing him with his tail. And I'm not talking about siphoning his energy with the tail by stabbing him with it. I mean he actually opens his tail and tries to assimilate Zamasu within him. I mean, it's worth a shot. The Kai struggles to escape and eventually, Cell absorbs him. So I'm sure some of you are asking, would that even really work? I think it would. First of all, let's consider the power gap between Cell and Zamasu. It's pretty massive, so this isn't something that Zamasu could easily escape. And like we saw in the Cell saga, it seems that when Cell absorbs someone, he doesn't really kill them, they just remain in him. Like when Gohan punched Cell, he threw up Android 18, who was still alive but just unconscious. So Zamasu would just be in there and not be conscious. I don't think him having immortality will really affect this. Plus, Cell can absorb other people. He's not just made to absorb the androids. And now I'm sure you guys have another question. Does this mean Cell is immortal now? I would disagree. If anything, it would be like a merge Zamasu situation where he's half immortal. But I wouldn't even go that far because that's different. That's fusion versus Cell just absorbing him. But Cell does get an interesting benefit from this. With Zamasu inside of him, Cell can just siphon the energy from him whenever he needs, and since Zamasu is immortal and can't die from this, well, I guess Cell just inadvertently created an infinite energy engine within him, kinda like Lapis and Lazuli have in their timeline. But instead it's a Zamasu engine instead of an actual engine. It's kinda brutal if you think about it, it's basically a torture device. But yeah, I think this would be something that's possible, even though it sounds pretty crazy and weird. And I guess that means they defeated Zamasu. That was a lot easier than they thought. Trunks returns back to the present timeline with Vegeta and Cell, thanking them for their help. They also meet up with Beerus, Whis, and Goku, and they confirm that Zamasu is the one behind it, and how Cell was able to subdue him. But could this be an issue in the future though, because Zamasu is still kinda alive, he's just unconscious. It's pretty dangerous and risky, but as long as nothing happens where he can escape from Cell, it should be fine. So to conclude this arc, Trunks returns to his timeline victorious, and Zamasu from the present timeline is erased, so that's the end of this arc, I guess. It went really quickly, but that means now we can get into the Tournament of Power. And since this episode has been pretty short so far, we're going to combine the two of them into this episode. So for the Tournament of Power, the team this time isn't actually that different. Really, the only difference would be that Cell replaces Frieza. Of course, all the fighters have improved individually in terms of power, so that's different. If you want to get really technical, the only other difference is that 17 and 18 are called Lapis and Lazuli here. But besides Cell replacing Frieza, it's not really much different. However, the tournament itself will go pretty differently since Cell is there instead of Frieza. So now let's move over to when the tournament actually starts. The beginning of the tournament is pretty similar to normal, except now that the entire team is split up, Cell decides to use a certain technique to help them out. He spawns a bunch of Cell Juniors at the beginning of the battle, in order to help out some of the weaker fighters of Universe 7. This basically means he just created a bunch of bodyguards. The gods would probably be pretty mad about this, but I'm sure Zeno would allow it since it's a technique and not really extra fighters. And he'd probably think it's pretty cool. And this is really good for Universe 7 because Cell is pretty overpowered here. I mean, he'd pretty much be on the level of Goku and Vegeta, since they all did similar training. You could even argue that Cell would be the strongest of the team because he has Frieza's DNA inside him as well, on top of all the Saiyan DNA, and now with Zamasu inside of him as an energy source, well, he's got infinite energy too. So he's a huge help to the team, not to mention the fact that he has Cell Juniors helping everyone. So let's continue with the rest of the tournament. Kaba never got Super Saiyan, and by extension, Kale and Caulifla never got it either, so Kaba and Caulifla get eliminated pretty early on. They don't really stand too much of a chance. Seeing Caulifla eliminated, this probably would cause Kale to rage out and access her Berserk form, which is really the best shot that they've got, and she's able to do some considerable damage, even knocking out some of the fodder fighters. Luckily though, the Cell Juniors are there to help out people like Krillin, Tien, and Roshi, so they don't have to worry about getting knocked out. And since everyone sees Kale as a huge issue and a big target, she gets taken out eventually. Universe 6 is off to a terrible start, and Universe 7 has a huge lead here. This also makes them a big target for everyone else, but like, what are they gonna do? People like Cell, Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and Lapis on the team, they can handle pretty much anything that comes towards them. So everyone holds their own, and with the Cell Juniors being around helping everyone out, Krillin, Roshi, and Tien stay in this time. The more I think about it, the more I'm realizing that Cell is pretty overpowered here. Regeneration, infinite energy, the ability to create clones of himself, plus the fact that he's beyond Goku and Vegeta in terms of power, and when he regenerates he would get Zenkais. Well, to say the least, everyone's pretty terrified of him. Not Universe 7 though, they're proud to have him here, especially Beerus. But even with all that power, he's still not enough to take on Jiren yet. But Goku decides to do that himself, with a Spirit Bomb. With Goku being stronger and getting energy from someone like Cell, the Spirit Bomb itself is actually a little bit more powerful, especially since everyone else on the team gets a little stronger too. So Jiren has a little bit more trouble pushing it back this time, but it's not too much of a big deal. This causes Goku to get Ultra Instinct like normal, and that fight goes pretty much the same. The tournament goes on, and the fighters in the other universes begin to dwindle as they get knocked out. Considering the fact that he has infinite stamina now, by using Zamasu as some bootleg infinite energy engine, I wonder if this means that Cell could actually keep creating Cell Juniors and just overwhelm everyone. I mean, he probably could in theory, but I doubt he needs to. Because eventually the fighters get down to only Universe 11's top 3, Dispo, Topo, and Jiren. Goku never gets Ultra Instinct Omen again against Kefla because, well, Caulifla and Kale are knocked out. So really the next big fight is against these three. Well, there's also Aniraza, but he gets defeated a lot easier this time too. Eventually, with only Universe 7 and 11 left, Dispo and Topo begin their team effort against Universe 7, with Dispo using his super light speed mode and Topo even trying to use his God of Destruction mode, even though it kinda goes against his morals. He probably still would at this point, considering how annoying it would be having all those Cell Juniors there. He'd probably consider it as dirty fighting. And similar to Frieza, it would just annoy him to a point where he'd want to use his God of Destruction powers. This ends up getting a bunch of the Cell Juniors destroyed, which is actually allowed because they're not separate fighters. Not like it's a big deal anyways. But Dispo and Toppo wouldn't be enough to take everyone out. Dispo for sure wouldn't even be an issue. And Toppo would be harder to face, but with all these strong fighters there, they'll be able to eventually get rid of him. Jiren's the main issue now. Everyone wants Goku to use that Ultra Instinct thing he had, but he can't actually use it again, he doesn't know how to. Even with all of Cell's powers, they don't know if they can defeat Jiren. And no, Cell's not going to try to absorb him, not because he doesn't want to, but because he probably can't considering the gap in power. Jiren would probably be able to escape pretty easily and catch the tail before it even happens. So since no one is strong enough to take Jiren on alone, how could they defeat him? A combined attack from everyone in Universe 7 wouldn't be enough to even phase him. But maybe they don't need physical power. Potentially strength and numbers could be able to defeat him somehow. They try and think of a plan. And eventually, Goku comes up with something that sounds kind of stupid at first, but begins to sound more and more genius as he explains it. He tells Cell to make some of those Cell Juniors from before, and Cell's kind of confused about this because they won't be enough to defeat Jiren. But Goku doesn't want them because they're powerful. He wants Cell to make them and just keep on spawning them until there's too much for Jiren to even handle. Not that they'd be powerful enough to take out Jiren, no. He means just spawning a bunch of them at once and then having them attack Jiren and try to tackle him out. He's still not using his full power, so having all these Cell Juniors come at him could hold him down or just paralyze him somehow while everyone else attacks and tries to push them off the edge. It sounds goofy at first, but Cell warms up to it and thanks Goku for coming up with this idea, because it might actually work. While the remaining fighters face Jiren, Cell begins popping out a bunch of Cell Juniors, and then some more, and then some more, and then more, and then more, till eventually he has a whole army of them. The gods think this is ridiculous to watch, but Zeno thinks it's pretty hilarious and awesome, and it's still technically just a technique. Jiren sees what's happening, but he isn't really fazed by it because he thinks he could take them all on. But what he doesn't know is that they're not here to add some physical power, they're here to just hold him back, basically as a distraction. Jiren eventually gets swarmed by hordes of Cell Juniors, and I'm sorry if you could hear my voice trying to breaking up because I'm just trying not to laugh imagining Jiren getting attacked by swarms of Cell Juniors. It's just a really weird mental image. But anyways, we're gonna roll with it. It's not even the fact that it's just a crazy idea, it's just funny to imagine this happening, so I'll try to keep my composure. And hopefully you guys can as well. But anyways, the swarms of Cell Juniors keep attacking him, until he's swallowed up by a pile of them. And then Jiren is stuck under a mountain of Cell Juniors, and he's not able to escape. I imagine he would be pretty angry, but there's not really much he could do when he's being swarmed by them. And with all this combined manpower, they end up bringing him closer and closer to the edge, and then he eventually falls off. It's like an avalanche. Like I said, Cell is so overpowered that this probably would be something that could happen. But still, of all my what-if scenarios where I got to the Tournament of Power, this is definitely the craziest one. I try to imagine realistic ways in which they could defeat Jiren, and try to not have it be the same each time. And it does sound pretty hilarious, but it could happen considering all the powers that Cell has now. Infinite energy and duplication is a pretty deadly combo since he's basically a factory that makes fighters. But yeah, they're able to defeat Jiren in a scenario that seems like it would come out of The Walking Dead, with hordes of little monsters attacking him. So who would be the MVP? Well, probably Cell because he did most of the work. I mean, he's just hilariously broken here. I guess they gotta patch that in the next update. The wish is made to restore all the universes that got erased like normal, and that concludes the Tournament of Power and the scenario for now. The Broly movie wouldn't happen because there's no Frieza and there's no real reason for anyone to recruit Broly, so sadly he's gonna rot on Vampa with Paragus, at least for the time being. And in terms of Moro, well, we're not gonna get into that arc until we see what happens in the actual story itself, because given the way this scenario is going, I want to see how that arc finishes before I get into it with this scenario. If I start it now, it's going to be a little premature and it could completely change once that story ends. So consider this a temporary finale for now. Right from the start, the scenario was pretty silly. I mean, after part 1 it gets pretty hilarious with all the stuff that happens. But the conclusion here is my favorite part in the scenario so far, because if you have overpowered abilities, you might as well use them to your advantage, and Cell definitely got the memo. But now I want to hear your thoughts. What did you guys think about this pretty crazy scenario? And what do you think will happen next if I end up continuing it? Leave your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below and I'll be sure to check them out. As always, if you like this video, be sure to drop a like, and if you haven't already, why not subscribe, as well as hitting the bell icon to get notifications about future parts of this What If, or any other videos that I make. I swear my other what ifs are a lot more serious than this one. This one was a lot more lighthearted and fun, while I did try to keep it semi-realistic. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.